Following presentation shows the research conducted to determine the academic and social impacts of social networking sites (SNSs) on students within the OMSCS program. This research was conducted by Vivek Chelani, Philip Walker, and Srinidhi Ravindranath. In order to have a better understanding of the study or domain, let us break up the key terms in the title of the research. What are social networking sites? SNSs are web applications that individuals use to exchange messages, share information, and in some cases cooperate on joint activities. Learners within the OMSCS program use several SNSs, but this research focused on 5 particular ones: Canvas, Peer Feedback, Piazza, Slack, and Udacity. When individuals think of the term SNSs, applications like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are probably the first things that come to mind, but by definition, any web application that allows users to create profiles and interact with other users is also considered to be an SNS. What is academic performance? Academic performance is defined as the achievement of educational goals. Tuckman once described performance as the apparent demonstration of understanding, concepts, skills, ideas, and knowledge of a person, and proposed that grades clearly depict the performance of a student. The definition basically addresses how performance is measured, through grades, cognition, learning, and memory, to name a few ways. Social performance is an umbrella term used to describe various social attributes which could contribute positively or negatively to how well an individual is able to interact with others in order to complete a task. Researchers often use real-time physical engagement as a baseline because individuals have the highest amount of potential to interact. In physical settings, individuals can express themselves with absolute certainty about their emotional state and convey meaning both through vocal communication and by physical cues. The natural dynamics of course change when we talk about interaction and engagements over social networking sites, because much of the social phenomenon you would experience in a physical setting no longer exists. For the purposes of our study, we utilized 3 criteria for gauging social performance. Social presence, which is the amount of interpersonal awareness an individual feels while communicating electronically, the amount of emotions felt when using an SNS, and a user's ability to engage those individuals. Diving into the methodology that was used to test the null hypothesis, surveys were generated and distributed to OMSCS students, which asked questions on SNS usage, demographic information, and academic and social attributes. Interviews were more focused on social characteristics. The data analysis consisted of multiple descriptive statistical analysis, empirical tests, and regression tests. The level of frequency of average SNS usage will be determined by organizing the data from lowest to highest usage, and students falling in the first quartile will be considered non-users. This was done in order to create an environment that will analyze non-users as individuals who do not use SNSs and users as individuals who do use SNSs. The average time spent on SNSs was first calculated by finding the average time spent on each SNS platform on a daily basis. The chart in the slide shows that more than 50% of survey respondents spend 1 hour or less on SNSs on a daily basis. From the quartile method, all non-users fell into the category of 1 hour or less. This slide shows 2 different plots. The plot to your left shows the relationship between GPA and the average daily time spent on SNSs. There's a slight positive correlation between the 2 properties. A student's test was used to test the 2 properties, and a more detailed explanation and analysis is shown in the paper, but in short, a statistically significant difference exists based on the p-values being less than 0.025. The graph to the right shows a breakdown of platforms ranked most helpful in descending order. A test was then conducted to compare the GPA of users who ranked Piazza as most helpful versus the combination of GPA of users who ranked all the remaining platforms as helpful. Unfortunately, the results produced from this test were not as significant, and this could be due to the low number of survey respondents or sample size. To see if SNS usage had any bearing on social performance, we also conducted several scientific tests and also looked at the means and standard deviations of survey results. We ran a total of 6 regression tests which were run against the SNS users' populations. In the first 3 tests, the independent variable related to an emotional component, while the independent variable in the remaining tests related to a social uses component. The dependent variable in each case was the learner's GPA. The only test which showed significance, a p-value of less than 0.05, was with Slack when emotional aspects were considered. In evaluating means and standard deviation and additional social criteria, we found that the majority of users did not experience levels of depression through SNS usage. Additionally, users were mostly neutral on the social attribute of trust and felt integrated within an online community while using SNSs. In contrast, however, users did not feel as if the relationships formed over SNS held the same value to those found outside SNS. We also developed a social anxiety scale which utilized various social attributes to describe an anxiety level. Social attributes were weighted based on their significance to adding to anxiety levels. A t-test was then run to find correlation between each population, but the results yielded no conclusive significance. The two charts in the image depict the responses given for survey questions which attempted to sum up a learner's personal preference when it comes to social engagements in the program. Learners were asked to consider other platforms such as video conferencing and text messaging when making their choices. The first chart corresponds to whether learners felt their collaboration performance increased when using SNSs in the program. More than 3/4 agreed with that statement. The second chart corresponded to whether learners felt if they were better able to conduct student-to-student interactions, and as you can see, almost 90% agreed with the statement. Moving on to the qualitative findings, which were from the interviews. 10 interviews were conducted, 2 of which were recorded. Significant findings that were shown or observed through analysis. All interviewees expressed feelings of depression from SNS usage. Slack proved to be the most beneficial platform in terms of its academic and social impacts. All respondents expressed SNS usage having a positive impact on their academic performance, which was measured through their GPA, and they all expressed feelings of increased anxiety from SNS usage. In conclusion, a learner's GPA was affected based on the average time spent on SNSs daily. A learner's GPA was also affected based on the social impacts felt by Slack platform users. Overall, the null hypothesis is rejected since the analysis showed that SNS usage has impacts both academically and socially. However, due to the low number of survey responses, we feel that this study could be reproduced with a larger sample size to validate the alternative hypothesis. Thank you.